Did the Minnesota Vikings just get a gift from the Green Bay Packers? Well, we're going to talk about it on today's show. Welcome in the Vikings Now by Chat Sports. I am your host, Patrick Siepman, and the latest report we are getting out of Green Bay is that the Packers are expected to cut Pro Bowl cornerback Jaire Alexander. So could the Vikings sign him? Well, we'll talk about it on today's show. But I remember some other Packers that joined the Minnesota Vikings in the past, leaving Green Bay, and then their next team being the Minnesota Vikings. Zadarius Smith, a couple off seasons ago, came to Minnesota, followed the linebacker coach to the Minnesota Vikings. He had a monster year for the purple and gold, but then also most recently, Aaron Jones, he left the Green Bay Packers, came to the Minnesota Vikings, and obviously we got, Brett Favre from back in the day, went to the Jets, then went to the Minnesota Vikings. So there is a history of former Packers players heading to the Vikes. So on today's show, we'll talk about Jaire Alexander, and then also in the second half of today's show, I do want to go over 3 dream draft targets I have for the Minnesota Vikings. But speaking about the Packers, it's funny enough. I think Packers fans forgot what happened last season, because a lot of them are still talking noise on social media saying we're still the second best team in the NFC North, yada, yada, yada. So if you guys want the Vikes to sweep the Packers yet again, just go down there and hit that thumbs up icon. 2-0 against Green Bay last season, and I expect that to stay the same for the next couple of years. So if you guys want the Vikes to sweep Green Bay next season, go down there and hit that thumbs up icon. So what the Packers expected to cut Jaire Alexander, or how would that look like financially for Green Bay? So if it's a pre-June 1st release or trade, it's a terrible contract for the Packers. They're really stuck in this, but it would be a $19 million dead cap hit with $6.38 million in savings. So pretty much them cutting Jaire is them just eating this contract, and I would assume they would make it a pre-June 1st release, but there's also a good possibility they make it a post-June 1 release. But the only downside to this, yes, you get more savings in 2025, but it increases their dead cap for 2026. So no matter what, if the Packers do end up releasing Jaire, you are on the books for $19 million in dead cap. It just comes down to will they want to put it all in the 2025 books, or will they want to put it on the 2026 books? But if they do make it a post-June 1st release or trade, they will save $17.17 million. But I want to get this out there. I don't think this is a hot take whatsoever. But I was just looking at the Packers, how financially they're set up, and what type of big moves they can make this offseason. They're pretty strapped against the cap, and I don't think it's a hot take to say I think the Packers, if I had to call it right now, they will finish last in the NFC North. I think the Bears and the addition of Ben Johnson, they're going to have another good offseason. They got a top 10 pick in the draft. They actually have 3 picks in the top 45 this upcoming season. I think they're going to be a better football team this upcoming season than Green Bay, and I know everybody's freaking out over the Lions. They still have a really good culture there. They got a bunch of tier 1 players in the NFL. I think they're still going to be there. And then obviously the Minnesota Vikings, I think they are head and shoulders a better franchise right now than the Green Bay Packers. So my hot take, and I don't think it's a hot take, is that the Packers will finish last in the NFC North next season. Let's dive into Jaire here and talk about how he would fit with the Vikings. Now, the number one concern for Jaire Alexander is his ability to just stay on the football field. He has dealt with numbers of injuries over the past couple of seasons. This past year, only playing in 7 games. The year before that, played in 7 games as well. 2022 was his best season. He had 5 interceptions, played in 16 games. But even back in 2021, 4 games played. So 3 out of the last 4 seasons, this guy hasn't played half the year. And that's why I think his contract projection, if he were to be cut, I think it would just be on a 1-year prove-it deal for a team. 1 year, $8 million contract with $5 million of that in guaranteed money, because Jaire right now, just double-checking his age here real quickly for you guys, because he is not a young quarter. He's still 28 years old, so he could kind of take this deal, be like, hey, I'll go play 1 year, then I could get maybe a 2-3 year deal for, $30-40 million if it goes well. But for Jaire, you got to stay healthy. You got to stay out there on the football field. But I do think the Vikings would have some interest in Jaire Alexander. He knows the NFC North well. He knows the receivers in this division like the back of his hand. And I would actually like the swagger and almost the cockiness that he plays with, adding him to this Vikings defense. But I think it all starts with Byron Murphy. Now, if they throw Byron Murphy a bag and they end up extending him on a $20 million per year salary, I do think it makes the Jaire signing a little less likely. But even if they sign Byron Murphy, you are still extremely thin at the cornerback position, because right now the depth chart heading into the next season, you only got 3 guys on the roster, and this is assuming you bring back Byron Murphy. But let's just say Murphy some team gets super desperate and throws him $22 million per year, are you rolling out next season with Mekhi Blackmon, Dwight McGlothern, and you're probably going to have to draft a guy, and that's going to be your cornerback rotation? I don't think the Vikings have any plans to have that be the case for the upcoming year. So my take on Jaire, I would sign him in a heartbeat. I understand the injury concerns, but still, when this dude is out there and he's playing high-level football, he is one of the better cornerbacks in the National Football League. However, it has to be a cheap deal. I am not signing him to anything more than a one-year contract. It would have to be $7, $8, $9, $10 million. Maybe he signs a very similar deal to Stephon Gilmore, maybe only like $2 or $3 more million per year. But I would sign him. Like, I would love the idea of rolling with Blackmon, Murphy, and Jaire, that being your three-man cornerback rotation. And plus, Kwesi loves to go money ball a lot of these times where he takes these, top-end talent guys like Jaire Alexander is, who they fizzled out with their previous organization, first-round talent, bring him in the building. I could see the Minnesota Vikings bringing Jaire in a heartbeat. So I would sign him to a deal, but again, it's just going to come down to, what they do with Jaire Alexander. Are they going to be able to, get him on a 1 year, $8, $9, $10 million deal? But that's the case. I mean, I think the Vikings have to consider it, because then also you wouldn't need to throw a first round draft pick at the cornerback position. You could target defensive line. You could target the offensive guard spot, which we'll talk about here in a second. But you guys let me know, would you re-sign or would you sign Jaire Alexander? Give me a Y for yes or an N for no down below. Now we'll get to my 3 dream Vikings draft targets here in a second, but first, I got to tell you guys about today's presenting sponsor, and it's actually Public Rec. Now, this February, treat yourself right, because comfort is always in season. Upgrade to Public Rec and feel the difference. For a limited time, you can get 20% off at publicrec.com by using code CHAT20 at checkout. Just head to publicrec.com, use code CHAT20, and you are all set. And guys, let's be real for a minute. Nobody's got time for stiff, uncomfortable clothes anymore. You know what I mean? It's February. It is freezing cold right now in Minnesota, and you deserve to be comfortable in whatever you're wearing, no matter what you're doing. That's where Public Rec comes in. These pants are a game changer. Their pants are designed to be as comfy as your favorite sweats, but way more stylish. We're talking super soft fabric, no stiff seams, and enough stretch to keep up with whatever your day throws at you. And Public Rec, they're not just about pants. They have so many great style options, whether you're working all day in the office, running errands, or just grabbing a drink with the fellas. Who doesn't want to look sharp without sacrificing comfort? And I'll tell you, once you put them on, you're going to wonder why you ever wore anything else besides Public Rec. So this February, treat yourself right, because comfort is always in season. Upgrade to Public Rec and feel the difference. For a limited time, you can get 20% off by using promo code CHAT20 at checkout. Just head to publicrec.com, use code CHAT20, and you are all set. Oh, and then when they ask how you found them, be sure to mention our show, Vikings Now by Chat Sports. It really does help me and our company out here at Chat Sports. So find your perfect fit and never compromise on comfort again. Public Rec, where comfort rules. All right, so let's close today's show out talking about the NFL draft. And there's a lot of movement going on right now. Like, some guys are flying up draft boards. Some guys are falling down draft boards. So I just want to go over 3 guys who I think would be, home run selections for the Minnesota Vikings at pick number 24. And we can start off with my number 1 dream, Kenneth Grant. Now, I do have some bad news for you guys. This guy in the latest Daniel Jeremiah mock draft was supposed to go in the top 15, and I think he's way more likely to go top 15 than in the 20s. So maybe the Vikings would have to trade up for him. But this guy, he is one of the most interesting prospects this year, because I think he was overshadowed a little bit by Mason Graham at the University of Michigan this past season, but he was still incredibly successful. And when you hear these draft analysts talk about the difference between Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham, the main difference is just consistency. But Grant shows the flashes to truly be one of the better defensive tackles in the National Football League. I mean, 7 TFLs this season, 3.5 sacks, 27 total pressures from the interior. But even it goes further with Kenneth Grant. Take a look at his pass rush win rate here on screen, 9.4%. That is up there to the far right of other defensive tackles with 300+ snaps. But run stop rate, 7.9, fantastic. Pass rush grade, 75.3. Run defense grade, 87.5, all the way to the far right of that. So, my take on Grant, probably unlikely that he falls to pick number 24. And I understand the Vikings have very limited draft capital, and we got aggressive last year trading up for Dallas Turner. But Kenneth Grant's one of those guys where he is such a difference maker and just so good at the game of football. I would trade up for him for the right price. So, like, let's just say he's fallen to, like, pick number 18, 19, and the team says, hey, we'll swap first-round picks with you. You just got to attach next year's third. If that's the situation and you love Kenneth Grant that much, I am doing that in a heartbeat. I think the Vikings, obviously limited draft capital, but the roster is already – relatively complete with some certain holes at certain positions, but I do think they're in a spot to potentially trade up for a guy, and Kenneth Grant, I mean, I would do it in a heartbeat. But let's kick it to Tyler Booker here. Another guy, bad news. He is flying up draft boards. He actually just went 13th to the Miami Dolphins in the latest mock draft by Daniel Jeremiah. So the Vikings, it's unlikely that he falls to pick 24, but he's also another guy that I would be down to trade up for. And I'll tell you what, Vikings franchise quarterback J.J. McCarthy, he would be all in on getting Tyler Booker. These guys were high school teammates. J.J.'s senior year at IMG Academy down there in Florida. This was after the Rose Bowl game. They were dapping each other up. Tyler Booker said, hey, go win the big thing. And obviously we know J.J. McCarthy went on to do just that. But Booker, he was really solid for Bama this past season and throughout his collegiate career. He is a stone wall at the offensive guard spot. He's got great technique, great hands, great leverage on every single play. And his overall grade, 66.5, but he's great in the pass block set, 86.5, run block, 63.9. He is a true stud at the offensive guard spot. But again, it's going to be unlikely that the Minnesota Vikings are going to land him at pick number 24. It could be a similar situation like I was just laying out with Kenneth Grant, where let's just say he's there 17, 18, 19, 20, still on the board, and you want to ensure yourself to land him. I wouldn't think it would be a bad idea to trade up for him whatsoever. But a guy that I'm becoming a massive fan of, and an underrated guy, but I promise you guys this, I think I'm on this early. TJ Sanders will be a first-round pick, and he will be a top 25 draft pick. This dude's an absolute stud. I think he's honestly a better prospect than Oregon defensive tackle Derek Harmon, because if you just go filter their tape and all of their sacks, like a lot of Harmon sacks, they were kind of just like twist concepts. They're almost manufactured. But this guy, TJ Sanders, I mean, he's got super long arms. You can see this in the photo I'm showing you. But he gets those long arms out there, and then he's super athletic. We can just make a quick move and get home to the quarterback. And he's flying up draft boards right now. Like, I was just listening to Todd McShay talk about him. He said this guy has a better chance of being a top 20 pick than being a second-round pick. I'm a big fan, a big fan of his game. And the Vikings, with a need at the defensive tackle spot, let's just say you can't go get a guy like Kenneth Grant. You don't want to trade up. This guy would be a great option. And, the raw numbers don't blow you away by any means, only having 4 sacks, but 33 pressures from the interior in 13 games. That's a very positive stat for him, but 50 tackles total, 7 TFLs, and, he's a big body. I mean, he's 6'4", 284 pounds, and what I was just talking about, his hands, that's the biggest pro for me. They're violent. Like, he will throw them in your face. He will make a move with his hands, and when you have these long arms, you don't allow, offensive linemen, because they want to get close to you. They want to get your pads on their hands, but TJ, he doesn't allow that to happen. Throws his long arms at him and his violent hands, but conditioning. He is not consistent as it stands right now, but he is only 21 and a half years old, so I wonder if the conditioning and just the consistency will come with age with TJ Sanders. But I love his pass rush moves. He's got a full arsenal. I'm not going to lie, he kind of reminds me of Danielle Hunter, where it's a little unorthodox in his pass rush moves, where it's like, we always used to joke around with Danielle where we were saying, like, oh, he never had a plan on any certain play. He would just kind of throw stuff out there. I mean, Danielle Hunter, he was hitting like Euro steps coming off the edge. You kind of see that with TJ Sanders a little bit. And fun fact, speaking to how athletic he is, he was a phenomenal basketball player in high school. He was awesome. I think I read he won a state championship in hoops and football his senior year. So I would be thrilled if the Vikes could somehow land him. But you guys let me know, who is your dream Vikings draft target right now? For me, it's Kenneth Grant. But also, I would be thrilled with a guy like TJ Sanders or Tyler Booker at pick number 24. But what say you? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments section. Now, if you guys also want to hit me up, I am on Twitter. @PatSieps is the Twitter handle. Give me a follow over there, and we'll see you guys next time. Skol Vikes.